record this interview.
Yes.
I may wish to quote from this interview either in the presentations or articles resulting from this work. Do you agree to allow me to quote from this interview?
Yes.
There are a number of reasons for which you may prefer that your true name be used in presentations and articles related to this research. Would you like your true name to be used in any oral presentation or written documents resulting from this research?
Well, Touré is my true name, so yeah.
All right. The bad thing about having him here, it's great otherwise, is that people are awfully tempted to look to him as they're answering questions. Look straight into the camera.
Into the camera, not to you?
No, it's like into the camera. Combination of both, like into the camera to me. You can look away sometimes, but primarily into the camera.
Okay. That's what you had everyone do? Look into the camera?
Yeah, is that bad?
Not that it's bad. I mean, there's different ways to do it. I think it looks better if I'm looking at you, but
Gotcha.
whatever you want.
Well,
it's fine. There's many
this
ways to do it.
direction, just not all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So your dad comes from Chicago with you? That's
Yeah.
amazing.
What are the most important political issues facing the hip-hop generation?
Well, I mean, I think perhaps the two most important political issues are the fatherlessness in the generation, how so few of us have fathers, and I don't just mean the artists, but also, you know, the DJs, the people just in the culture who love the music. So what music are they gravitating toward? There is such a dearth of fathers, which means that men have to go out and learn how to construct manhood and relationships on their own without the guide of an older man, or at least a competent older man. And so that's very damaging. How do you figure out what a man is if you don't have somebody explaining to you properly what a man is? The other major political issue that shaped hip-hop was crack, the influence of crack, the money from crack, and the violence from crack. We still have a lot of crack usage today, but the price is less, so there's less violence. But in the 80s, crack came in, especially to New York and LA, and you had this surge of violence because it cost so much. So you had people's lives being ruined, and that was something to write rhymes about. You had this great new energy and excitement in the community. You had teenage and 20-something millionaires. You had people getting shot all the time. You know, a lot more guns in the community. And on one level, it was sexy, but on another level, at a much deeper level, it was destructive for the community, and that's part of why hip-hop was able to come out. We needed a voice to talk about we're drowning because of crack, and hip-hop was that.
And how does hip-hop respond to these issues?
Hip-hop responded to crack and the violence and the money by talking about it. And, you know, I mean, hip-hop has always earned, or tried to earn that. Wait for that. Hip-hop is very confrontational. So any issue that's in our way, we're just going to talk about it and talk about it. So they responded to crack by talking about it. There's lots of songs, lots of little rhymes, you know, from Night of Living Bassheads to some of KRS-One stuff, talking about the impact of crack, as well as your various rappers who used to be dealers, that whole subset. Some of them continue talking about their experiences in the street. Some of them, like Jay-Z, stopped talking about their experiences in the street, but that remains part of their story. So you know that's behind them. You know, and then you get a guy like 50 Cent come out and, you know, he's the biggest bad man, boogie monster possible because he used to sell crack in the street. He was the toughest crack dealer. In terms of fatherlessness, I mean, that's an issue we haven't really dealt with. I mean, it's one of those things that's not discussed that often. You know, I mean, occasionally you hear a song, I didn't have a daddy around, and sometimes you'll hear that extra love from mom. But the fatherlessness is less discussed, more in sort of subtle ways, like the intense brotherhood you see in hip-hop, like in Wu-Tang Clan, where they really love each other and talk about loving each other in an almost intimate way. And that's how they sort of talk without talking about not having dad, talk about man-to-man love.
What are your impressions of how blacks are portrayed in pop culture?
I mean, for the most part, hip-hop is a world where black men are central. We are the prime movers and shakers, and everything that happens spews out from us and what we want. So, in a lot of ways, hip-hop presents the black man as very primal, very strong, very powerful. He's the center of the world, and he's not really the center of any other world outside of, say, the American basketball universe. The black man is center. But, within hip-hop, if you're white or female, you have to appropriate black male norms of movement, of attitude, of carriage of your body, just to be in the game. So you get your MC Lights and your Lady of Rages, who have to be like, boys, tomboys, or your little Kim, who has to be a boy toy just to get in the game, or you have your Eminem, who isn't in blackface the way that MC Search was, but he's clearly the white kid who grew up around black kids and, idolized black kids and put them, forefront his mind.
What black historical movements, figures, institutions, and ideologies do you see as having a dominant impact on hip-hop culture?
Well, Malcolm X is a massive impact on hip-hop. The attitude, I don't even know how many rappers have actually sat and read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Maybe some, maybe not all of them. But you don't have to read that whole book to get the sense of Malcolm X. He's everywhere. People talk about him. They show the movies, the speeches. You see all you got to do is see 10 seconds of him on stage, and you can feel that power, and how he wasn't taking anything from white man. And so he's a massive spiritual and intellectual, because those who read him, like all of us, really were changed by getting to know him. I also see a lot of impact from Huey Newton. I think that his message, and again, the personal message, I don't think everybody's reading, his book, Revolutionary Suicide, or reading, Seize the Time, and figuring out the Panthers' 10-point plan. But at one point I did feel like East Coast rap was like the Panthers with the 10-point plan and without the guns, and the West Coast rap was like the Panthers with the guns and without the 10-point program.
Right, yeah. What black historical movements, figures, institutions, and ideologies do you wish had more of an impact on hip-hop culture?
I don't know. I don't know that one. I don't know that one. Yeah. I don't know.
Black nationalism is often defined as a form of racial solidarity or self-determination. It advocates for black empowerment from an economic standpoint.
Well, wait, let me go back for a second. I mean, I guess you can also see the tremendous impact of the...
Get your car.
Get your shit. Oh, that...
I think she's coming.
I think he's in it.
I see somebody walking together.
Yeah.
Yesterday I did an interview with Kim Rosario, and it was an ice cream truck that was just like killing us,
I think that you see the impact of the black arts movement of the 60s, Nikki Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, and Leroy Jones, in some of the arty avant-garde rap of, your Common, your De La Soul, your Tribe Called Quest. Certainly not a direct one-to-one relationship like, the Panthers and Public Enemy, but certainly the spirit of what the black arts movement was trying to do is definitely reflected in that sort of what we used to call the native tongues.
Black nationalism is often defined as a form of racial solidarity or self-determination. It advocates for black empowerment from an economic standpoint. It and as a core belief supports an idea of black-linked faith. What is your definition of black nationalism, and what do you think about the existing ideas about black nationalism?
Well, black nationalism is about putting black people first. I mean, the term itself is kind of strange because we don't have a nation, I mean, generally you talk about nationalism, you're talking about, loyalty to a land and the people who live there. We don't have that in any way. So it's sort of a weird sort of thing. But, when you put black people and black businesses and black ideologies first in your mind and in your actions, that's black nationalism. What was the rest of the question?
What do you think about the existing ideas?
I mean, I don't think that there really is black nationalism too much today. I mean, I think the idea was hot in the 80s and somewhat in the 90s, but it was much hotter in the 70s. But I think generally the idea is cooling down, unfortunately.
Is it present in hip-hop culture at all?
Yes, I think that a certain nationalism will just always exist in hip-hop. I mean, there's always a sense of black people come first, the hood is first, black people are primal and primary. So, I mean, yeah, without question, I mean, there's a nationalistic subtext that will always exist in hip-hop.
Black feminism has been said to support a sense of linked fate with blacks and with women. It also identifies a triple threat of race, gender, and class affecting black women. What current definition do you have of black feminism, and how do you feel about how it has been represented?
In hip-hop?
In general.
Well, I mean, just I see a lot of the women I know struggling with feminism because it's hard to be a hardcore feminist and get a guy. Because guys don't really want to hear about it. Like you could be pro-black together as a man and a woman, but when she's feminist, it takes an extra level of sensibility and sensitivity from a man to be able to deal with that, and a lot of times it's just easier to just not be a feminist. And I see a lot of women struggling with that word. They'll believe in the principles, but then they will not want to use that word, or sort of struggling with the idea of like, if I'm a feminist, do I still get to wear my heels and look cute? Within hip-hop, there's almost no real feminism, say, outside of the work of Queen Latifah. I mean, outside of her specifically, there's misogyny, there's tremendous mistrust of women. There's tremendous, even like in the 80s, hip-hop was way out ahead of all the music about talking about wear condoms. There would be songs about it. There would be little mentions here and there about it. Of course I put on my hat, but it was not based in a intellectual place of sexual responsibility or interpersonal responsibility. It was couched in mistrust of women. We don't know where these hoes have been, So I mean, even that message, the right message coming from the wrong place, and that's what happens to feminism in hip-hop.
What news media events, such as the Million Man March, the O.J. Simpson trial, or even 9/11, prompted or closed out a discourse about black nationalism during the past 2 decades?
I think O.J. boosted black nationalism for a moment because it was certainly a situation where black people felt one way and white people felt differently. I mean, even with the Million Man March, there were millions of white people who were supportive of that concept. I was there. I can't remember if there were white people there, but there were certainly white brothers and sisters like, go for it. You guys go atone and fix your shit. But 9/11 changed a lot of things around nationalism. Suddenly, it was about being American. it wasn't really about being black versus white. Suddenly the enemy was not the man, the fuzz, the pigs, the white man. It was about, somebody from another country who want to kill all of us, don't really care about black-white differences, And also with 9/11, for the first time, and I really felt this, the black man was no longer public enemy number one in America. It was like we were second behind, the unidentified Arab man, who's trying to blow us up. And actually, in that year, gay marriage was a really hot issue. And it seemed to me like the black man was suddenly third on the list because the gay man was like, oh my God, he's going to ruin America if bin Laden and Al-Qaeda don't blow us up. Black man, you can sing and dance for us and it's cool. We love you. Right now we're not so worried about getting robbed. We're worried about getting bombed, So, I mean, following 9/11, it was definitely like, wow, I feel different in America. Like, the need for nationalism, black nationalism, was not there so much. And I mean, anybody who sort of said anything anti-American was really, the least was really beat upon, and sort of black nationalism would seem divisive in that moment. And so, I mean, it was definitely, 9/11 was definitely a moment when black nationalism really sort of took a step back.
What news media events such as the Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill hearings, the Spelman students' Nellie Tip drill controversy, and Essence's Take Back Your Music dialogue prompted discourse about black feminism over the past 2 decades?
What was the first example? Oh, OJ. Clarence Thomas.
It doesn't have to be one of those.
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah.
Is hip-hop political?
Hip-hop is absolutely political. I mean, hip-hop itself, whether you talk about politicized hip-hop from Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, some of Common's work, you have that where people are overtly discussing political things, and sometimes in the case of, say, a Chuck D, becoming a sort of shadow senator and able to go on a show like Nightline and have a major political debate, or maybe even be able, to engage, an actual politician. You have people like Russell Simmons who've used their power that they gained within hip-hop to be able to be friends with Hillary and be able to get meetings with John McCain and others like that, and be able to go to, the New York state legislature and try to advocate for, things that hip-hop needs, reduction in the Rockefeller drug laws, which is certainly an attack on hip-hop sort of people. But I mean, then when you just talk about people, which is just the nature of hip-hop and how combative it is. I mean, hip-hop is about reality, things that are really going on, wearing your real clothes, talking about things that are really going on, as opposed to R&B, which is about fantasy, talking about, love and wearing clothes that you would never wear in the street. And so, I mean, in this way you see it's very politicized, it's very political, it's not as politically organized and intellectually focused as we would like it to be. It's not actually a political movement. I mean, the Panthers had, places where you could go to get help. They had a philosophy. They had an ideology. They had their thing together. Hip-hop doesn't quite have that, but it's definitely political and politicized, and there are many political animals within hip-hop and the genre itself. I'm glad I was almost done.
What is your definition of power?
The definition of power is the ability to get somebody else to do something you want them to do. That's it. I mean, there's different sorts of power, but I mean, when you want, whether or not they want to do it is irrelevant, You you want a job. If I have money to pay you, you will do that job. You know, if, you know, or, you know, judge, you don't want to go to jail, but I'm a judge, you know, I make you do something.
How, if in any way, does hip-hop's power come to light?
How does hip-hop's power come to light? I mean, hip-hop certainly is a selling tool. Certainly the clothes that rappers wear, the drinks that rappers drink, the unsundry things that rappers smoke, they talk about it, and it happens in the community. Jay-Z talks about, you know, drinking Cristal. People want to drink Cristal. Cypress Hill talks about smoke more weed. And without question, some people, you know, get the idea, I'm going to smoke some more weed because Cypress Hill or Dr. Dre said it, so it definitely makes people do things. I mean, you know, and hip-hop definitely has the power to get people money. You know, I mean, there are many, many people who... There are many, many people. Hip hop has the power to get people money. There are thousands of people who were poor and were able to enter the hip hop game and get money. And I don't just mean artists, but also executives like Andre Harrell, who grew up in the projects. You know, A&R people that you may not know. You know, marketing people. I mean, there's an entire billion-dollar industry, and there are others who support that industry, the video directors and lots of different people who work within the hip-hop world who've gotten jobs. And if hip-hop didn't exist, where would they be?
How and why is hip-hop...
What time is it? What time? Oh, it's cool. Go ahead.
How and why is hip-hop and the politics of hip-hop important to you personally?
Well, to me, I mean, you know, hip-hop is a prime way of talking amongst the generation, you know, of a rapper saying something, an idea that's in the community and pushing that idea forward and more people talk about it. So, I mean, the politicization of hip-hop affects the politicization and the ideology and just the mindset of just the hip-hop generation of where all of us are in our heads. So it is important to me that we have, you know, smart rappers who are talking about real things and that we are, as an audience, are listening to the discussion and talking back, talking to them, talking to each other. You know, I mean, R&B is not trying to get political ideas out into the world. Hip-hop is constantly trying to do that, from Eminem, you know, bashing Bush in a song, to Jay-Z making a little reference, leave Iraq alone. You know, we are constantly throwing ideas out there. And, you know, sometimes very wrong-headed ideas. But, you know, those ideas allow us to talk, to think. You know, I remember Public Enemy talking about Farrakhan in the 80s at a time when there was basically a media blackout of him. And as a teenager, I was kind of like, who's this guy that he's talking about? And that kind of helped spur me to figure out more about Farrakhan. That sort of meme spreading hip-hop does, which rock and roll and R&B don't even attempt. And that's critical.